Jake Morrison stood in the great hall of Nexus Prime, watching the alien delegates argue like children. The massive chamber stretched high above him, filled with the sounds of dozens of different species all talking at once. Some clicked, some buzzed, others made sounds he could not even describe. His translator device worked hard to turn it all into English words he could understand. 3 years. 3 long years he had served as Earth's voice in this place. 3 years of watching. Humans get blamed for everything wrong in the galaxy. Today felt different, though. Today felt like the end. The Zephyrian delegate stood at the center podium. High Counselor HFY was tall and thin, with blue skin that seemed to glow under the chamber lights. His 4 arms moved as he spoke, pointing at the human section of the hall. "The humans spread their ways to innocent worlds," HFY said, his voice cold and sharp. "They poison other cultures with their ideas. They take over trade routes. They act like they own space itself." Jake felt his hands grip the arms of his chair. Around him, the other human diplomats sat quiet and tense. Dr. Susan Gray shook her head slowly. Captain Rick Stone looked ready to stand up and fight, but Jake knew they had to stay calm. That was the human way in this place. Always calm, always polite, always getting stepped on. "The humans helped the Kalari colony grow food," said Counselor Miraval from the Altarian Republic. Her voice was soft but clear. "My people saw no harm in this." "Harm?" HFY turned to face her. "They changed everything about how the Kalari live. Soon the Kalari will think like humans, act like humans. Where does it end?" Jake had heard this before. Every time humans helped someone, other species called it dangerous. When human doctors cured the Red Death on 6 different worlds, the Galactic Council said humans were interfering with natural selection. When human engineers built better starships, they were disrupting the balance of power. When human farmers taught others to grow more food, they were spreading cultural poison. The vote board lit up on the wall. 47 green lights, 3 red lights. Jake was not surprised. The green lights meant yes to the new rules. Red lights meant no. The humans always voted red. The Altarians voted red. The Centauri voted red. Everyone else voted to put chains on humanity. "The motion passes," announced the council speaker, an ancient Zaraki whose voice sounded like grinding stone. "All human activities outside Earth. Space will now require council approval. All human trade deals must be reviewed. All human colonies will have council observers." The chamber erupted in sounds Jake could not translate. Some aliens seemed happy. Others looked worried. A few appeared angry. Jake felt something cold settle in his stomach. They wanted to treat Earth like a prison, like humans were dangerous, animals that needed watching. He stood up slowly. The sounds in the chamber began to fade as aliens noticed him moving. Jake walked down the steps toward the center podium. His footsteps echoed in the growing quiet. "Ambassador Morrison," the speaker said, "do you wish to respond to the council's decision?" Jake reached the podium and turned to face the hundreds of alien delegates. He had practiced this moment in his mind many times. He had hoped it would never come. But here he was. "I have served in this chamber for 3 years," Jake said. His voice carried clearly through the translation system. "In that time, humanity has given much to this galaxy. We have shared our medicine. We have shared our technology. We have shared our food and our knowledge and our protection." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some delegates leaned forward to listen better. "We asked for nothing in return but respect," Jake continued. "We asked to be treated as equals. Instead, you vote to put us in cages. You vote to watch us like criminals. You vote to control everything we do." High Counselor HFY raised one of his arms. "The council has made its decision. Humanity must accept—" "No," Jake said, cutting him off. The word hung in the air like a blade. Humanity does not accept this. We reject your oversight. We reject your rules. We reject this council. The chamber exploded into chaos. Aliens jumped up from their seats, shouting in languages Jake did not need to understand. The anger and shock were clear enough. "What are you saying?" the speaker demanded. Jake pulled out his data pad and read from the message he had received from Earth that morning. By order of President Lisa Hayes and the United Earth Assembly, humanity formally withdraws from the Galactic Council. All diplomatic relations end in 30 days. All trade agreements are canceled. All military cooperation is finished. The sounds in the chamber grew louder. Some aliens laughed. Others looked terrified. A few began talking rapidly to their assistants. "This is madness," Vexthai said. "Humans cannot survive alone. You need us." Jake smiled for the first time in months. "Do we? I guess we will find out." He reached up and removed his translator device, the small machine that had let him understand alien speech for 3 years. He set it down on the podium with a soft click. "Good luck," Jake said in English, knowing most of the aliens could not understand him now. Then he turned and walked toward the exit. Dr. Gray and Captain Stone fell in behind him. Other human diplomats followed. As they reached the chamber doors, Jake could hear the chaos growing behind them. Aliens argued and shouted, and demanded answers he would not give. Outside in the corridor, Jake finally let himself breathe. It was done. After 3 years of insults and restrictions and being treated like children, humanity was free. "Think it will work?" Dr. Gray asked as they walked toward their ship. Jake thought about Earth's growing colonies, about human trade, networks that reached across dozens of star systems, about the human navy that protected shipping routes other species could not patrol, about human technology that kept alien worlds running. "Ask me in 6 months," Jake said. "I think they are about to find out what they have lost." Captain Roy Chen sat in the pilot seat of his cargo ship, the New Boston, and stared at the distress signal on his screen. The message was clear and desperate. A Kalari freighter called the Wind Dancer was under attack by pirates in the Outer Rim. They needed help right away. 3 weeks ago, Roy would have changed course without thinking. That was what humans did. They helped when others were in trouble. But 3 weeks ago, humanity was still part of the Galactic Council. Now, everything was different. Roy read his new orders again. Any distress calls from non-human ships were to be logged and reported to Earth Command. No direct assistance unless human lives were at risk. The message was signed by Admiral Helen Carter herself. "Captain," his first officer, Lieutenant Beth Parker, looked at him with worried eyes. "The Kalari ship has children on board. Families." Roy felt something twist in his chest. The Wind Dancer's signal was getting weaker. Soon it would go silent forever. But his orders were clear. Earth had tried helping for 3 years. The galaxy had said no. Now they were on their own. "Log the signal and continue to Earth," Roy said. The words felt like rocks in his mouth. 2 hours later, the Wind Dancer's signal stopped. Roy stared at his screen and wondered if he had just become a different kind of person. The kind who could walk away from people in need. Meanwhile, on Nexus Prime Station, Trade Coordinator Zixnar stared at numbers that made no sense. The hegemony member was small and gray, with large eyes that seemed even larger now with worry. His job was to track all shipping in Council space. The job had been easy for years. Now it was becoming impossible. 34% of all galactic trade routes either belonged to humans or used human way station networks. Zixnar had not realized how big that number was until the humans were gone. Now whole sectors were cut off from trade. Ships that used to make regular runs between worlds could not find safe paths through space. The Kalari Federation was hit worst. Their economy depended on selling rare crystals to other worlds, but most of their trade ships used human navigation systems and stopped at human stations for fuel. Without those options, Kalari merchants could not reach their customers. Zixnar's assistant, a young Altarian named Vera Lynn, brought him more bad news. Sir, the Corvani industrial worlds are asking for emergency shipping assistance. Their cargo vessels cannot reach the Outer Rim markets without human escort. What about? Council patrol ships? Zixnar asked. Spread too thin, sir. We have 3 ships trying to cover routes that used to have 15 human vessels. Zixnar felt a headache building behind his large eyes. The Council had always known humans ran many trade routes. They just had not realized how many, or how important those routes were to galactic commerce. On Mars Colony, Dr. Emma Foster watched the news feeds from her office window. The red planet stretched out below her, dotted with the green domes of human settlements. Emma had spent 5 years running medical aid programs for alien worlds. She had saved millions of lives using human medicine and technology. Now she worked for the Mars Medical Research Center, developing treatments that would only help humans. It felt strange and lonely after years of helping everyone in the galaxy. The news feeds showed riots on Tarsus 4. A plague had broken out in the capital city. The disease was one Emma knew well. She had stopped 3 outbreaks of the same plague on other worlds using human antiviral treatments. The Galactic Council medical teams were still trying to identify the disease. Dr. Foster? Her assistant, Karen White, stood in the doorway. The Galactic Council Medical Division is requesting consultation on the Tarsus situation. Emma turned away from the window. What did Earth Command say? No assistance to Council operations. Medical supplies, for human colonies only. Emma nodded, but her heart felt heavy. She knew exactly what medicine the Tarsus people needed. She knew how to make it and how to use it. But the galaxy had made its choice. They wanted humanity to stay out of their business. Admiral Frank Miller stood on the bridge of the battleship Liberty and watched his fleet prepare to leave the Vega system. For 2 years, human ships had patrolled this area, keeping pirates away from the busy trade routes. Now, those routes would have to protect themselves, Admiral, said his aide, Commander Alex Reed. The Centauri merchant convoy is requesting escort to the Altair system. Denied, Frank said. We have orders to return all ships to human space. Frank had been a soldier for 30 years. He understood orders and duty, but watching merchant ships face pirate attacks without protection felt wrong. The human navy had kept dozens of trade routes safe. Without them, commerce in the Outer Rim would collapse. Sir, Commander Reed said quietly, intelligence reports that pirate fleets are already moving into areas we used to patrol. Frank nodded. Pirates were not stupid. They knew opportunity when they saw it. With human ships gone, vast areas of space were now open for raiding. Merchant vessels that had traveled safely for years would soon face constant danger. Back on Nexus Prime, High Counselor HFY tried to maintain his confidence as angry delegates surrounded him. The Zephyrian leader had spent weeks saying that humans were not important, that the galaxy was better without them. Now reality was proving him wrong. Counselor HFY, said Ambassador Kira Stell of the Centauri Alliance. 3 of our merchant ships have gone missing in the last week. Pirate activity has increased 500% in sectors formerly patrolled by human forces. The Council Navy will expand patrols, HFY replied. With what ships? Demanded Counselor Haravan of the Zephyrian Opposition Party. Half our fleet uses human-made navigation computers. Our shipyards buy 70% of their materials from human mining operations. The chamber buzzed with worried voices. Delegates who had voted to restrict humanity 3 weeks ago now faced the consequences of their choice. Trade was collapsing. Pirates were spreading. Several colony worlds had asked for emergency aid. The humans will return, HFY said, but his voice sounded less certain than before. They need galactic markets to sell their goods. Ambassador Stell laughed, but the sound was bitter. Have you checked human trade numbers lately, Counselor? Their internal commerce is growing faster than our entire economy. They are not the ones, suffering from this separation. HFY had checked those numbers. They kept him awake at night. Human colonies were trading more with each other than ever before. Human shipping companies were hiring new crews. Human worlds were placing large orders for goods from other human worlds. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson. Humans had not needed the Council as much as the Council needed humans. Trade routes, medical aid, military protection, technological innovation. Humanity had provided all of it while asking only for respect in return. Now the respect was gone, and so were the humans. In his private office, HFY stared at reports from across Council space. Economic collapse on 12 worlds, pirate raids increasing daily, medical emergencies with no human aid coming. His political enemies were calling for his resignation. 3 weeks ago, he had felt proud of putting humanity in its place. Now he wondered if he had destroyed the galaxy instead. 2 months after humanity left the Galactic Council, the galaxy was falling apart. On the banking world of Hegemony Prime, financial coordinator Nextar stared at computer screens filled with red warning lights. Every day brought new system failures and processing delays. The Hegemony Banking Consortium had run galactic finance for over 200 years. Their quantum computers could process millions of transactions every second. At least they used to. Now, those same transactions took hours, or even days to complete. "What is the status of the core processing systems?" Nextar asked his assistant. "Still running at 12% efficiency, sir," the young technician replied. "The human-designed quantum matrices are failing one by one. We cannot repair them." Without the original programming codes. Nextar felt his 3 hearts sink. The humans had sold the banking systems to the Hegemony years ago, but the maintenance contracts and technical support had all been handled by human engineers. When humanity withdrew from the galaxy, those engineers went home. Now the financial backbone of galactic civilization was crumbling. Bank transfers that used to happen instantly were stuck in processing queues. Trade payments were delayed for weeks. Several smaller banks had already collapsed when their systems crashed completely. On the industrial world of Corvan, factory supervisor Grixnall watched the last production line shut down. The massive facility had built starship engines for half the galaxy. Now it stood silent and empty. "How long before we run out of rare earth elements?" Grixnall asked his supply coordinator. "We are already out, sir. The last shipment from human mining operations arrived 3 days before the withdrawal. We have been rationing materials since then." Grixnall looked out at the factory floor where thousands of Corvani workers used to build the finest engines in known space. Most of those workers were now unemployed. The Corvani government was talking about massive economic aid programs just to keep people fed. The problem was simple, but impossible to solve. 80% of the rare elements needed for advanced manufacturing came from human mining worlds. Those worlds were now closed to alien buyers. The Corvani had tried to find other sources, but human mining technology was decades ahead of everyone else. In the space lanes between worlds, Merchant Captain Yilavan received another distress call on her ship's communication system. This was the 4th one today. Pirates were everywhere now, attacking any vessel they could find. "Captain," her navigator said with fear in his voice. "Long-range sensors show 3 raider ships moving toward the merchant convoy ahead of us." Yilavan checked her star charts. 2 months ago, this route had been perfectly safe. Human patrol ships swept the area twice a week, keeping pirates away from the busy shipping lanes. Now those same lanes were hunting grounds for every criminal in the galaxy. "Send a message to the convoy," Yilavan ordered. "Tell them to scatter and run for the nearest system. We cannot help them." Her ship was fast but lightly armed. Against 3 pirate vessels, she would only add to the casualties. The merchant captain watched helplessly as the convoy ahead tried to escape. 2 ships made it to hyperspace. The 3rd disappeared in a ball of fire. Before the human withdrawal, pirate attacks had been rare. The human navy maintained standing. Patrols across dozens of star systems. Their ships were fast, well-armed, and aggressive in hunting down raiders. Pirates had learned to avoid areas with human protection. Now those areas were open territory. Criminal fleets that had hidden in the deep dark for years were moving into civilized space. Merchant vessels traveled in armed convoys when they traveled at all. Insurance rates for shipping had increased by 300%. On Earth, engineer. Kate Wilson stood in the control center of humanity's newest achievement. The independent hyperspace network stretched across all human colonies, connecting them without relying on alien infrastructure. Ships could now travel between human worlds faster and safer than ever before. Network status? Kate asked her team. All. Nodes operating at full efficiency, reported technician Larry Adams. Travel time between Earth and the Tau Ceti colonies is down by 40% since we went online. Kate smiled as she watched data flow through the human-only network. Trade between human colonies had exploded since the withdrawal from the Council. Without alien bureaucracy and restrictions, human merchants could move goods freely across dozens of star systems. The irony was not lost on her. The Galactic Council had accused humans of taking over trade routes. Now that humans were gone, galactic trade was collapsing while human internal commerce boomed. Meanwhile, in a secret laboratory on Luna Base, scientist Peter Hayes made a breakthrough that would change galactic communications forever. His new quantum entanglement communicator could send messages instantly across unlimited distances. No more delays, no more signal degradation, perfect communication anywhere in the galaxy. Under normal circumstances, Peter would have shared his discovery with alien scientists. Human tradition was to help others advance their technology. But these were not normal circumstances. The galaxy had chosen isolation from humanity. Now they would live with the consequences. Dr. Hayes, his research partner, Dr. Carol Bennett, looked up from her test results. The prototype is working perfectly. We could replace every communication relay in human space within 2 years. Peter nodded. Market classified at the highest level. Humans only. Similar scenes played out across human space. Medical researchers developed new treatments for diseases that plagued alien worlds. Agricultural scientists created crops that could grow in hostile environments. Military engineers designed weapons and defenses beyond anything the galaxy had seen. All of it stayed within human borders. The Galactic Council felt the loss every day. On Nexus Prime, emergency session followed emergency session as the crisis deepened. The Altarian Republic had formally announced they were considering withdrawal from the Council. The Centauri Alliance was negotiating separate trade deals with human colonies. High Counselor VexThai faced his worst nightmare when Ambassador Kira Stell stood before the Council and delivered an ultimatum. The Centauri Alliance has lost 40% of our merchant fleet to pirate attacks, she said, her voice cold with anger. Our banks cannot process transactions. Our factories cannot get raw materials. Our colonies are requesting emergency aid we cannot provide. The chamber was silent as she continued. The Alliance government has authorized me to deliver this message. Restore diplomatic relations with humanity within 30 days, or the Centauri Alliance will withdraw from this council and seek separate agreements with Earth. Murmurs rippled through the assembled delegates. The Centauri were one of the founding members of the council. Their departure would be a massive blow to galactic unity. The humans chose to leave, VexThai replied, but his voice lacked conviction. We cannot force them to return. No, Ambassador Stell agreed, but we can admit our mistakes. We can apologize for treating them badly. We can ask them to consider returning. Apologize? VexThai's pride flared. For what? For maintaining order? For preventing human expansion? For being fools, said a new voice. Counselor Haravan of the Zephyrian opposition stepped forward. For destroying the most beneficial relationship this galaxy has ever known. As the debate raged, reports continued to flow in from across council space. More bank failures, more pirate attacks, more colonies requesting aid that could not be provided. The galaxy was learning what life looked like without human protection, human medicine, human technology, and human trade. HFY stared at the chaos around him and realized his worst fear was coming true. The humans were not suffering from isolation. They were thriving. It was the rest of the galaxy that was falling apart, and there seemed to be no way to fix it. The outer rim was burning. Captain Zara Kellix of the merchant vessel Star Runner watched her long-range sensors with growing horror. Red dots filled the display, each one representing a pirate ship or raider base. What had once been the safest shipping corridor in the galaxy was now a war zone. "Captain," her communications officer called out, "we're receiving multiple distress signals. At least 6 merchant ships under attack in this sector alone." Zara felt sick. Before humanity left the Galactic Council, human patrol ships had kept these lanes clean. Pirates feared the swift justice of Admiral Miller's fleet. Now those same pirates ruled the void between stars. "Plot a course around the danger zones," Zara ordered. "Add 3 days to our journey time." Her cargo hold was full of medical supplies bound for the Telexi colonies. People would die if the shipment was delayed, but more people would die if her ship was destroyed by raiders. The mathematics of survival had become very simple and very cruel. In the distance, she watched a convoy of 5 ships try to fight off pirate attackers. The merchants had weapons, but they were no match for military-grade raider vessels. One by one, the convoy ships went silent. Zara closed her eyes and changed course away from the massacre. On Nexus Prime, High Counselor HFY found himself facing something he had never experienced, a vote of no confidence from his own people. The Great Chamber was packed with angry Zephyrian delegates demanding his resignation. "You promised that removing human influence would strengthen the galaxy," shouted Counselor Niravel from the opposition party. "Instead, you have destroyed everything our civilization built." HFY tried to maintain his dignity as the accusations flew. The truth was harder to swallow than any insult. Zephyrian agricultural worlds were failing because their irrigation systems had been designed by human engineers. Those systems were breaking down without maintenance contracts. Crops were dying. People were going hungry. "The humans will return when they realize they need us," HFY said, but even he no longer believed it. "Need us for what?" demanded another delegate. "Their economy is growing faster than ours ever did. Their colonies are expanding. Their technology advances every day. What exactly do they need from us?" HFY had no answer. Intelligence reports from human space painted a picture of prosperity and growth. While the galaxy collapsed into chaos, humanity was having a golden age. Meanwhile, Ambassador Yarostel of the Centauri Alliance made a decision that would have been unthinkable 6 months earlier. Without Council approval, she ordered her ship to set course for Earth. If the Council would not fix this crisis, she would try to fix it herself. The journey to Earth took 12 days through space that was no longer safe. Yara's ship, the Bright Star, traveled with a heavy escort of Centauri warships. Even so, they fought off 3 pirate attacks before reaching the Sol system. Earth looked the same as always: blue oceans, white clouds, green continents. But something felt different as Yara's ship approached. The system was busy with traffic. Human ships moved freely between Earth, Mars, and the asteroid mining stations. Everything ran with clockwork efficiency. At Earth's orbital defense station, Yara met with Foreign Secretary Dan Cooper. The human diplomat was polite, but firm as they sat in a conference room overlooking the beautiful planet below. "Ambassador Stell," Cooper said, "Earth appreciates your visit. But our position has not changed. Humanity will not return to the Galactic Council." "What if the Council offered new terms?" Yara asked. "Better representation? Equal voting rights? Technology-sharing agreements?" Cooper shook his head. The problem was never about terms or agreements. The problem was about respect. For 3 years, your council treated humanity like children who needed supervision. You cannot undo that with better contracts. Yara felt desperation creeping into her voice. People are dying out there. The Outer Rim is overrun with pirates. Our banks are failing. Our factories are shutting down. The galaxy needs human help. The galaxy made its choice, Cooper replied. You chose to live without human involvement. We are simply honoring that choice. As Yara prepared to leave empty-handed, the real crisis began. On Valara Prime, capital world of the Valerian Dominion, atmospheric engineer Kothara watched his instruments with growing panic. The atmospheric processors that kept 40 billion Valerians alive were failing. The massive machines had been built using human technology decades ago. They scrubbed poison from the air and maintained the delicate balance of gases that allowed life to exist on the heavily industrialized world. Now those machines were breaking down one by one. How long do we have? Asked Prime Minister Kothara as she reviewed the technical reports. 6 months at most, Kothara replied. Maybe less if more processors fail. Without immediate repairs, the atmosphere will become toxic. 40 billion people will die. The Valerian government had already tried to contact human engineering firms. The humans had politely declined to help. Earth's position was clear: no assistance to council worlds or governments. Prime Minister Kothara faced the hardest decision in Valerian history. She could follow council protocol and try to find non-human solutions. But there were no non-human solutions. Only humanity had the technology to save her world, or she could bypass the council entirely and make a direct appeal to Earth. Such an action would be seen as treason by many council members. It might destroy the Galactic Council itself, but it might also save 40 billion lives. Kothara made her choice. That evening, Valerian broadcasts reached Earth with images that shocked the human public. Dying cities, poisoned skies, children struggling to breathe as the air itself became their enemy. People of Earth, Kothara said in the broadcast, I come to you not as a representative of the Galactic Council, but as a mother watching her children die. Only you can save us. I beg you to remember the mercy that has always defined humanity. The broadcast spread across human space within hours. News networks showed the images of suffering on Valara Prime. Social media exploded with debates about humanity's moral obligations. Protests formed outside government buildings demanding action. President Lisa Hayes called an emergency cabinet meeting as public pressure mounted. The room was divided between those who wanted to maintain Earth's isolation and those who believed humanity had a moral duty to help. If we save Valara Prime, every other world will expect the same help, argued Defense Secretary Wayne Mitchell. We'll be right back where we started, with the galaxy depending on us while treating us badly. 40 billion people, replied Secretary of State Ellen Foster. Can we really stand by and watch them die to make a political point? President Hayes stared out the window at the protesters gathering outside. Some carried signs demanding aid for Valara Prime. Others insisted that humanity should stay out of galactic affairs. The human public was as divided as her cabinet. The decision would define not just Earth's future relationship with the galaxy, but humanity's moral character itself. Were they the kind of species that could walk away from genocide to preserve their pride? Or were they something better? Outside, the protests grew larger as the images from Valara Prime continued to broadcast across human space. The galaxy had rejected humanity's help. But 40 billion innocent lives hung in the balance. President Hayes had 12 hours to decide whether humanity would save them or let them die. President Lisa Hayes stood before the cameras in the White House press room, knowing that her next words would change the galaxy forever. Behind her, the flags of Earth and the United Nations hung still in the quiet air, the weight of 40 billion lives pressed down on her shoulders. My fellow humans, she began, her voice steady and clear. Today we face a choice that will define who we are as a species. The people of Valara Prime are dying. Their atmospheric systems are failing, and without immediate help, an entire world will become uninhabitable. Across human space, people stopped what they were doing to listen. On Mars colonies, in asteroid mining stations, aboard ships traveling between the stars, humanity held its breath. The Galactic Council rejected our help for 3 months, Hayes continued. They chose to live without human assistance. We have honored that choice. But we cannot honor it at the cost of genocide. She paused, letting the weight of that word sink in. Therefore, I am authorizing an emergency humanitarian mission to Valara Prime. This is not a return to the Galactic Council. This is not a political decision. This is humanity choosing to save lives because it is the right thing to do. The announcement sent shockwaves across the galaxy. On Nexus Prime, the emergency session that had been debating Valara Prime's fate dissolved into chaos. Some delegates praised Earth's mercy. Others accused humanity of using the crisis to gain political advantage. High Counselor Vexathai watched his political career crumble as the news broke. The Zephyrian Opposition Party called for immediate elections. His own advisors suggested he resign before the vote of no confidence destroyed what remained of his reputation. Admiral Frank Miller received his orders 3 hours after the president's speech. The mission was massive and dangerous. Valara Prime lay deep in Council space, surrounded by systems that might view the human fleet as an invasion force. "How many ships do we need?" asked his aide, Commander Alex Reed. Frank studied the tactical reports. "Everything we can spare. Engineering ships, atmospheric processors, defense escorts. This won't be a quiet rescue mission." Within 6 hours, the largest human fleet in decades assembled in Earth orbit. The battleship Liberty led 50 ships toward Valara Prime. Engineers, doctors, atmospheric specialists, and the equipment needed to save a world. The journey took 4 days. As the human fleet approached Valara Prime, they found Valarian ships waiting to escort them. Prime Minister Kethara had gambled everything on Earth's mercy. Now that mercy was arriving in the form of humanity's most advanced technology. Dr. Emma Foster, former head of Human Medical Aid Programs, stood on the bridge of the hospital ship Mercy as Valara Prime grew larger on the view screen. The planet's atmosphere was visibly sick, brown and yellow clouds swirling where blue skies should have been. "Atmospheric toxicity is increasing by the hour," reported the ship's science officer. "We have maybe 3 days before the poisoning becomes irreversible." Emma nodded and activated the ship's communication system. "All medical teams, prepare for planetfall. We're going to save this world." The rescue operation was the largest humanitarian effort in galactic history. Human engineers worked around the clock to repair atmospheric processors. Medical teams treated millions of Valarians suffering from air poisoning. Supply ships brought clean air generators to the worst-affected cities. For 72 hours, humanity worked miracles. Ancient processors roared back to life with new components. Toxic clouds began to clear as scrubber systems came online. Children who had struggled to breathe took their first clean breaths in months. The galaxy watched in amazement. News networks broadcast images of human engineers working alongside Valarian technicians. Human doctors treating alien patients with the same care they would show their own families. Human ships delivering supplies without asking for payment or political concessions. On the 3rd day, Prime Minister Kethara stood in the planetary capital and looked up at blue skies for the first time in months. 40 billion people would live because humanity had chosen mercy over pride. The political earthquake that followed was immediate. The Altarian Republic formally withdrew from the Galactic Council and signed a bilateral treaty with Earth. The Kalari Federation followed within hours. The Centauri Alliance announced they were forming a new organization with humanity as a founding member. Ambassador Yara Stell stood before the Centauri Parliament and announced the creation of the Independent Systems Compact. "We choose to work," with humanity as equals, she declared. Not as subjects of a council that values politics over lives. High Counselor Vexthai's government fell 3 days after Valara Prime was saved. His replacement, Counselor Haravan, made an unprecedented journey to Earth to formally apologize for the Council's treatment of humanity. The meeting took place in Geneva, with Secretary Cooper representing Earth's interests. Haravan was humble and direct in his approach. "We were wrong," the New Zephyrian leader said. "We treated humanity badly out of fear and pride. We ask for your forgiveness and hope we can find a new way forward." Cooper listened politely, but his response was firm. The old council failed because it was built on the idea that some species should rule others. Humanity will not return to that system. "Then what would you accept?" Haravan asked. "A new beginning," Cooper replied. "Equal partners working together by choice, not force. No single species in charge. No oversight committees, no restrictions based on fear." 1 year later, the galaxy had transformed completely. The old Galactic Council controlled less than 20 systems, a shadow of its former power. Most species had joined the Independent Systems Compact or formed their own smaller alliances based on mutual respect and shared interests. Jake Morrison, the former ambassador who had walked away from the council chamber, now served as Earth's representative to the Compact. The organization had no central authority, no species in charge, no complex bureaucracy. Decisions were made by consensus among equals. The transformation was not just political. Human technology, freed from council restrictions, spread rapidly through friendly systems. Medical advances saved millions of lives. Agricultural improvements ended hunger on dozens of worlds. Navigation systems made space travel safer and faster. Trade flourished as never before. The human hyperspace network expanded to include allied systems. Shipping routes that had been dangerous became highways of commerce. The galaxy grew richer as cooperation replaced control. Most importantly, respect replaced fear. Species that had once viewed humans with suspicion now saw them as the friends who had saved Valara Prime. The ones who had chosen mercy when they could have chosen revenge. On New Geneva, the capital world of the Independent Systems Compact, children of a dozen different species played together in parks built by their parents' cooperation. Human and alien families lived side by side, working together to build something better than what had come before. Ambassador Morrison walked through one of those parks on the anniversary of humanity's withdrawal from the Council. A year ago, the galaxy had told humanity they were not wanted. Today, humanity was the most respected species in known space. The difference was simple but profound. Humanity had stopped asking for respect and started earning it. They had shown the galaxy what they could lose by pushing humans away. And when the moment came to choose between pride and mercy, humanity had chosen mercy. A young Kalari girl ran up to Morrison and handed him a flower she had picked. "Thank you for saving the Sky People," she said in careful English. Morrison knelt down to her level and smiled. "Thank you for reminding us why we did it." The galaxy had learned its lesson. Respect could not be forced or legislated. It had to be freely given to those who earned it through their actions. Humanity had earned that respect by walking away when they were not wanted and returning when they were needed. The old order was gone. In its place stood something better, a galaxy where species worked together as equals, where differences were celebrated instead of feared, and where mercy mattered more than pride. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had shown it how to be free.